So for me, it's like, my body can do this, so why shouldn't I do this? So it's pushing my mind past this limiting belief of I can't do this stuff. Hey, welcome back to Uncivilized Rebirth. Here's a place that I hope you find a voice of reason and rationale, and I share with you what I've learned about healing. And you're my mission. So I've been through a lot of physical injuries in the last 42 years. I've had damaged hip, damaged shoulder. I've had a disease that left me in a wheelchair with spinal cord damage. I've dealt with multiple sclerosis. I've dealt with wrecks and things of that nature. I've been hit in the head with a skateboard. Had a concussion when I was like 5. Wearing body armor sitting for a long period of time damages the lower back. Just walking around a ton wearing body armor damages the lower back and the joints. I've rolled my ankles many times in training. I've broken both of my ankles. I've sustained like wrist fractures. Just so many different ways my body has been damaged. But here I am. I'm still able to exercise and do my daily routine and still move forwards, even with all of these things. And one of the things that I found that was the most crucial in this is stretching. And if I don't stretch my body properly, then I'm not going to be able to use it, and it's going to become just complacent. And the body gets good at what you have it do. So if I chose, when I had a disease, to just stay in that wheelchair and stay in a bed and bed rot, my body would have gotten good at that. And if I chose, like, oh, I can't lift my shoulder past this because of lifting injury, and I will never lift it past this, then my body will get good at that range of motion. So I started like figuring out, it's like, what do I need to do to get everything working? And so I started researching straight up what I did. I had a bad shoulder issue. And I started researching on YouTube, like, what are some of the best stretches to relieve specific pain? And I would find specific videos of dudes that show a stretch specifically for that specific pain. Well, so thankfully I had a lot of pain, and so I found specific videos that dealt with specific issues. So what I'm about to show you is unilaterally how I stretch to deal with my shoulder issues that I used to have, and it now gives me full range of motion. And this is what I do and what I've developed from learning from other people to get my shoulders in the best shape they can be in for what they are currently. That being said, there's so much in the world out there that I don't know. I'm just sharing what I do know and what I have learned. So this exercise right here, I found tremendously helpful for having pain on the front of my shoulder when I would lift my arm up. It would be like this serious pain. And when I started doing this stretch, it alleviated so much of that pain. And even now, if I'm training and I get tweaked and I feel it, I'm like, oh man, I got to start stretching more. And so I'll dive back into making sure that I put my stretching routine at the beginning of my workout every time. I'll go a couple of days here and there where I just jump right into training and I skip the stretching. But when I do that, I know it can lead towards aggravating those old injuries. Now, this exercise right here, like this stretch, really helps with the back, where those small back muscles on the back of the shoulders, and stretches those really well. And in my opinion, what it does, it helps unilaterally get everything stretched out evenly, so I am not like having my back overly flexed or my chest overly flexed. My shoulders are pulled forwards out of socket or pulled backwards out of socket or held up where they're not lined up properly. But I make sure I do this unilaterally. This stretch right here, I try to keep my arm straight and pull back, and it gets a good stretch through here. It hits the pec some, and where like the triceps tie in down here below the shoulder joint, and like some lats and stuff like that. But it's also getting my shoulder stretched. Now, if I feel it hurting, I'm not going to pull through that really hard, but I'm just putting gentle pressure on this, and I hold each one of these for 30 seconds. And if I feel a lot of tension of like, oh, I want to stop, I just keep putting gentle pressure and I go for the full 30 seconds. And like on the other side, I did that stretch behind the back that pulls the upper shoulder. It helps with the pec. And this exercise right here completely alleviated this like impingement I had on the front. It was like this knife pain. And I looked it up and this dude's like, do this. I was like, okay. So I started doing this consistently. And lo and behold, like this exercise or this stretch right here, in my opinion, is one of my favorite shoulder stretches of all time. And like I'm gonna make sure I do this every single time. Now here, like I said, unilaterally, like on the other side, I stretched the arm across the body, putting gentle pressure on that shoulder joint and those muscles that tie into the back. And I did it on the other side, so I'm doing it on this side. And I try to make sure that I put the same amount of pressure for the same amount of time so that each joint is being treated evenly all around. And I found like this, I've already said that so many times, helps me so much even now when I feel like I've put too much pressure, or like if I'm doing some bench and I feel that in the shoulders at this age, it's like, oh, got to get my stretching in. Now here's a great one. What I do is I twist the wrist and I rotate all around, so that joint where the humerus is tying into that socket, it's twisting. Everything is twisting while it's rotating out. So everything is getting all loosey-goosey in there. And I found like this is excellent for just that mobility in there. And I learned that on YouTube as well. So now I'm going to get into calves. So I have decent calves and I like to stretch my calves. I find that if I don't stretch my calves consistently, I will get calf cramps. And also it helps with the development of my calf, in my opinion. But then also like that is like in the chain of muscles that runs up the leg. So it's important for it to be loosey-goosey, because if I run or if I'm doing jumping or stuff like that, I'm using my calves as a spring, because I don't land on my heels. I land on like the balls of my feet where my toes are. And the calf basically is a shock absorber. And so it's important I take care of my calves. Now here, I'm just gently stretching my hamstrings from that calf stretch. I'm pulling down, trying to keep my back straight. And I'm doing this very gently. And I'm putting just gentle pressure on the back of my hand, on my hamstring. This is really important because a dude I used to do MMA with a little bit, he said that loose hamstrings equal loose lower back. And lo and behold, he was right. Quads, I find, is super important to keep the quads stretched for the activities that I do. And like I said, I used to be in a wheelchair. I used to not be able to use my legs, and they had gone kind of into atrophy. I had to learn to walk again. So me stretching now, like, I guess in a way shows my appreciation for my legs. It's like I need to take care of these very, very much. And so I truly believe that in stretching them, it's like stretching the muscle a bit, not just pulling it shorter, but stretching it longer allows it to open up the vascularity and allow more blood in and better flow to be rotating out that blood and that oxygen. Because I don't go for exercise where I'm trying to shove as much blood in there as possible. I'm trying to go for exercise where I can use that muscle at max capacity for a long period of time. So I don't need the blood to just be filling up in there to try to stretch it to make it grow. I need this thing to work over and over and over at like 90%, no, maybe 75% of its capacity. So that means the ability to rotate out fresh oxygen, rotate out that blood is very important. And I believe that the stretching allows that to happen. And here again, like on the other side, I'm gently stretching my hamstring. I'm not trying to kill myself. I'm not in a lot of pain here, but I'm definitely feeling it. And in doing this also, like I'm getting a stretch down my calf also. But I first got my calf stretch some, and then I'm throwing in that next long muscle, the hamstring. So now I'm getting this big, long, I maybe want to say kinetic chain of stretch. And that helps keep the lower back loose tremendously. And I've found that this helps with my mobility, and it helps after I've been sitting for a long period of time, and it helps when I row or get into my exercises. And here on the same side, I'm doing my quads now. I like to do the back muscles and then the front muscles. And I like to hold each of them for 30 seconds. And I like to pull back here because I'm getting to stretch up my core a little bit too. It's not just in my quad, but it's going up on my front side. So I'm trying to get a lot of bang for my buck, basically stretching as much as I can there. And it helps again with my mobility, because as we age and we become stagnant, our bodies get good at becoming stagnant. So this next one is I'm just stretching out to get an internal stretch. So like on the inside. And I decided not to do that one. So here, let me explain what I'm doing here. What I'm doing here is I am unilaterally using the hip joints in different positions to activate different muscles while doing a stretch. It pushes me a little bit. It's not easy, but what I'm doing is I'm using my core. I'm using the muscles on my left hip joint differently than I am on my right hip joint, but I'm also stretching my hamstring, and I feel this stretch go further up into my body when I lean over. I like it because it just stretches in a different way, and I'm using my hip joints unilaterally, and I'm engaging my core. So for me, it's like, my body can do this, so why shouldn't I do this? So it's pushing my mind past this limiting belief of I can't do this stuff, when in reality, like, my body is able to do this. And so when I start stretching in manners that I'm not used to, that starts branching out into what I'm capable of. And it tells my brain, oh, I can do this. But also it teaches my hip area mobility, knowing that one leg can point this way and one leg can point that way, and hold pressure here and tighten this muscle. So standing up, I'm not activating muscles this way. I'm not stretching muscles this way. But when I'm standing that way, it's like using everything and just like putting my system into not shock, but just like, what the crap's going on? But then I hold it. And when I'm done, it's like, oh, that feels good. So now I'm going into an exercise that helps my core, and it works on all the small muscles on my hip joints and using them evenly as best as possible. But then also my foot is in a Vibram 5 fingers, so I'm not protected or using any stability from a shoe sole. Like, my foot is wrapped around that foam roller. So I'm not only activating the foot muscles, I'm activating my leg muscles and my hip muscles and my core to keep that leg straight and prevent that roller from rolling. So I'm holding that leg tight while I am rotating the other leg. I'm not sure how many rotations. I think I did 15 in each direction on this, but I'm getting all the leg muscles the muscles in that hip joint to be used evenly. But I'm using all the muscles differently, unilaterally in my hip sockets, which is great for like shocking the system, because when I first started this, maybe 6 months ago, I was like, whoa, my crap, like, this is challenging, because the system's like, what in the world? Like, the brain is having to activate muscles in different ways on different sides of your hip joints that it's not used to. And so for me, I found that this helped me develop a lot of stability, a lot of strength in my foot, and then I can do different things with my legs at the same time with focus. So like I said, like, my left leg right now, it is tight. My core is tight, while my right leg and that hip joint is rotating. So all the muscles are being used a little bit differently, which again is like putting the system into like a position of like, this is new, but the body starts learning to be comfortable with that and to develop the ability to have the processes of using those muscles individually in different ways. Here's a foam roller. It's great for my upper back and my core. But what I like about this so much is the fact that that roller has potential to roll at any point in time. So that means my quads, hamstrings, glutes, calves, core have to be activated the entire time. So this isn't a rest period. But I'm also, check this out, able to roll out those upper back muscles that are in conjunction with my shoulder muscles. So this is also benefiting my mobility up top by working on those muscles. But then it's also activating my core. My core is getting woke up as F before I exercise by doing this, because you can't not use those muscles. But during this, the stiller I remain and the more controlled I remain, the more I'm using all of those stabilizer muscles consistently to prevent rolling back and forth. And I've found like this has been amazing with lower back injuries. Why? Because I am using my core and my glutes and tightening my lower back, and there's no downward pressure on my spine, so I'm getting no pain, but I can tighten those muscles as tight as I can down there, which helps develop the lower back muscles to support those old injuries. Okay, so now here I'm going into another way where I'm using the hip joints totally differently. But then also I'm using my core, and I'm having to prevent rolling back and forth. I'm stretching my right hamstring, my right quad, and I'm stretching my left hamstring. But also I'm able to find the points that are like the pressure points in my hamstrings that need to be rolled. And usually I'm right on a bundle with like built up fascia or whatever that I'm literally feeling it. It's like, oh, and when I feel that bundle that needs to be worked out, I set the pressure right on it. So I'm putting a lot of my body weight right on these spots in a major muscle group that needs to be worked out. But I'm also still stretching my glute. I'm stretching that hamstring, not as much, but I'm rolling it out and I'm stretching that other quad as well. So again, this is helping me be comfortable with using my legs in different positions, but just holding. So it's like breaking out of the idea of just being stagnant or using the legs together no matter what. So this is my stretching routine. Like, I have some more stuff I do, but this is the core of what I do for my body to maintain like mobility and flexibility. And after what I've been through in my life, like, I shouldn't be able to do what I can do now. I shouldn't be able to. But in our healing journey, we have to do stretch activities, no pun intended, of like do new things, like go into new territory or go into that territory that we always avoid. And when we always avoid those painful points in life, we don't get used to it and we don't grow past it. So basically in this video, I just want to share with you what I do physically for stretching, which helps me maintain my mobility and helps me in my journey every day. And so that being said, like, we don't have to like go to a gym and do what everybody else is doing. You know, like a lot of times what they're doing will lead to injury if we do monkey see, monkey do. And if we see a lot of people with injuries for many, many years, don't copy what they're doing. Copy the people that look like they're fine. You know, it's like maybe they did have injuries and they moved past it. And also, I get self-conscious. I like stretching by myself. So I want to encourage you, like, order a band, get a band or something, or find a way to do these stretches if you want to, because you'll find like they open up your energy centers. You'll be more mobile and you'll feel so much better. And after you stretch, you're just like, oh man, that felt so good. Okay, that's the video today. I just want to encourage you to stretch. It's super beneficial. I'm going to end the video now. Roadhouse, Spiritual Hard.